The cannabis industry can be very scary and exciting at the same time, but you're not alone. Join the community and understand all the different influential people and ancillary providers who can help you scale and grow your audience and your business. I'm your host, Kham. Let's dive into the Cannabis Business Development Podcast. Welcome back, everyone. Ulysses Youngblood is the president of Major Bloom, an impact-driven cannabis company in the Economic Empowerment Program. And Major Bloom has manufacturing, retail, and delivery license in Worcester, Mass. As a vertically integrated operation. They also have recently opened their retail doors. Ulysses and Major Bloom are highly involved in the Worcester and neighborhood community. Ulysses is also an adjunct professor of entrepreneurship, innovation, and cannabis regulation at Clark University. Before decriminalization, he was expelled from college for weed-related offenses. Still, he has found himself successful in running an impactful business. He's an inspiration to many, and we are thrilled to have him on the show today. Welcome.
What's going on, Kham? How are you?
Doing great, man. I'm excited to connect with you, especially someone here in my backyard, because we've had different guests from all over the country. So what you're doing is amazing. Looking forward to unpack your story. You also being a professor, how do you manage all this stuff? Because I think other owners and other people are inspiring to be in your footsteps. We want to kind of share, how does that journey look like? And what can we do to give advice for those future entrepreneurs like yourself?
Oh, for sure. And thank you for the introduction, man. And I'll have to tell you a disclaimer. You can give advice, or I should say I can give advice, or experience rather than advice. Because, there's a lot that, kind of going through stuff. It's like, all right, well, how do you navigate? And a lot of it's just experiential, whether it be my experience or other people's experience that I've really taken heed to.
So let's start a little bit from the beginning. How did you get into the business? Some people think we're crazy, right? Being entrepreneurs or being owners, and especially in this really new industry. So what was the aha moment? How did it get you here?
Yeah, it was probably the culture first. I think the aha moment for me was family and friends. I knew that my older sisters, I have 3 older sisters, they all love weed. An older cousin or, close friend who's like a cousin, love weed. And it was more or less a culture for me. And I mean that from the sense of as a teenager, just trying to navigate and be a teenager and hang around family and friends and keep each other busy. So not too long after that, I ended up getting into college to play football. And essentially at that college, I ended up getting kicked out for marijuana-related offenses, like you mentioned. And that happened to be the year before decriminalization happened in Massachusetts. So ever since then, there's a seed drop that I'm going to get in trouble for something that's trying to become more mainstream and socially available for people. So it wasn't then that I realized that I wanted to be a cannabis entrepreneur. It's habitual experiences that happen that kind of smacked me in the face and was like, oh, you should do this. So that really took place after I finished business school in 2016. As you had mentioned, get kicked out of actually 2 schools, still pursued my undergraduate and went on to go to business school. And that's kind of when it clicked and was like, corporate America's cool, but I ran into some of the same issues that I did just being a student in college in my professional career. And essentially that was the time where it's like, all right, well, I love cannabis, I love business, so let's make it pop.
So right out of the get-go, did you even have a taste of what would be like to be an entrepreneur or own a business? Before getting into hey, I want to start a cannabis business?
That's a great question, bro. That's a great question. So yeah, man, that's around the same time when I was introduced as a teenager, my dad and I started a power washing business in Southern Connecticut. So I spent a lot of my summers cleaning houses and restaurants, and it was awesome. I had a dope childhood. So it was a lot of discipline. It was a lot of discipline to wake up early, you know what I mean? And actually go work and do stuff. But at the same time, what I enjoyed the most is that as a teenager, I was bringing money home for the family. So that entrepreneurship bug was bitten, early. And then of course, I told you family and friends, they love weed. So there was a time where I was around weed more than I should have been as a teenager, yet still running a family business and making ends for the family. So that's what I mean by experiences that kind of smack me in the face, because those things you don't forget, the moral and the ethic groundings, you don't forget that as a teenager. And those are the things that I like to bring forward to Major Bloom now is, just being aware, socially conscious. And I think, for a lot of people in my shoes, cannabis looks really big, and it was big for me. but at the same time, or however, you should really kind of get over those self-limiting beliefs. And that took actually some experience in the corporate world to realize that, like, as a salesperson, that happens often. You might put yourself in a slump, but it's all you. If you want to sell, go out there and sell. You know what I mean? So I got a lot of confidence from actually working at corporate America as well.
Sales is a whole different breed. I think like there's a brotherhood in that too, brother and sisterhood in sales. So when you see operators that come into this business who may not have sales background, I guess, like, is there an advantage for those to have a sales minded background versus maybe an operational minded or just like a creative minded background?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. I think what happens often is trust fund babies, generational wealth, and that kind of shows in their business a bit, because you can have all the money in the world. It's just that, like, if you do things differently, and that's what happens with Major Bloom, you start to see people pay attention a little bit more. And if you stay that path, you can see progressive in the growth. We're not the biggest cannabis company in the world, and I have no aspirations of being that. You know what I mean? I think what's most important is being authentic. If there's a way to measure that, that's something that you want to bring every day. That's something I try to bring every day. So it doesn't really matter, like, if someone's getting acquired for 100 million, 200 million, it's the authenticity. I'll give you an example. Like, we had a delivery the other day, and this guy's right down the street from a dispensary that just got acquired. Yet he's calling us in to go deliver to his crib. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's authentic. You got to experience that to be like, yo, this is dope. Like, fuck that corporate cannabis shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you do you. And I think a lot of people, to get into the business, if cannabis or other businesses, and everyone's trying to dream that, I feel like it's social media that's giving the wrong, impressions, right? It's just like what you read, it's fake news, however you want to look at it, right? But like the reality is it's not as easy, it's not for everyone. And everyone has a space in it. And it goes back to like how you lead your team and your brand and what you guys do in the community. Happiness, I feel, comes from what is success for yourself, right? For your brand. So like, what is that for you? What is it that you guys feel is your niche or kind of like purpose?
Right. That's a good question. And truth is what it means, authenticity, going back to that. So like the team here, there's nothing worse than someone that's in the industry that doesn't consume cannabis. It's like, what are you doing this for? You know what I mean? And that's the thing, is that it's staying true to the culture, man. It's like, we have a lot of legacy traditional cannabis users on the team here. So I think that's number one, most important, probably because of the area that we're in. We're in a low income neighborhood where, basically you have a lot of traditional weed smokers. We sell a lot of weed and pre-rolls. We have edibles, we have vapes, but like between flower and pre-rolls, that's like, top tier. So I think it's important to curate a team and a menu that's around what your local neighborhood's looking for, essentially. So I think that's one thing that's important, is knowing that there's economic development baked into our business model. And then we're an equity business here in Massachusetts. So we have a delivery license, we have a retail license, and manufacturing license. And what's probably the most important, I guess, creative we get is curating the menu of products that we produce, that we process and package. So I think being able to do that is what sets us apart, especially in a more saturated area like Worcester, Massachusetts.
And it is getting saturated. How do you deal with that? And it could get more saturated, right? And if someone came into the business and said, hey, I want to get into this and I want to be in Worcester, like what do you say? How do you coach them through that?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I think the biggest thing is, you ask, like, how do we deal with it? Creativity is definitely the first gut answer. And the second is wholesaling. We do a lot of wholesaling to other dispensaries. So I think it's important for us to cater our menu to our own local neighborhood, and then also build a brand outside of our neighborhood, you know what I mean, and other retailers. So right now we're probably like 30 or 40 other retailers, and that's across different product lines too. So we do a lot of pre-rolls, infused pre-rolls, blunts have been moving really well. And then actually next week we're dropping our first edible line, which is a cereal bar. So you know why we did that?
Why? I mean, I'm assuming you must have talked to your clients, the community about it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it, man. You don't see cereal bars on a regulated menu. It's definitely more of a legacy, traditional, at my house kind of thing. So we figured we'd bring that to the regulated market, because traditional and legacy, it's common, just like brownies, you know what I mean? Believe it or not, we don't see a lot of brownies in this market either, but it's so like everyone did that, you know what I mean? Going back to the question, man.
Oh, basically, if you had a friend or someone that you knew, it was like, hey, I got my license, I want to open up in Worcester, and you're like, hey, there's a lot of people here.
Right.
What would you say?
It depends. Going back to the previous question, I think too, is the truth. It's the truth. Like, what's inside you? Like, why do you want to do it? I think it's important to have transferable skills. You know what I mean? I say that because if you don't have experience growing, then it's going to be tough for you to stand up a cultivation business. You have that passion for it. So that's probably my first bit of experience because, I tried my hand in the cultivation spot and it failed. At the same time, I got plants in the corner over here that are dying. They're not even being watered right now. These are just like household plants. So yeah.
Well, it's a different focus, right? You take care of your cannabis plants versus your regular plants.
The point is it's skill set. It's skill set, and I'm sure these will come back to life with a little TLC. But yeah, no. To your question, like where do you start? It's starting with your skill set and what you're passionate about. And I'm not passionate about growing.
So okay, you have certain skill sets, right, Ulysses? So but then do you know your weaknesses? So how do you fill those gaps?
Yeah, the team. Yeah, my team is pretty smart. A lot of them are smarter than me in certain aspects, for sure. That's the quick and dirty. Definitely team, man.
You talked about brand earlier, and that's a big thing that we are always educating our clients. But people throw that word out all the time, brand, right? But like, what does that mean to you? So when you say, hey, we stand out because our brand's doing other things, we're going to other neighborhoods so that our brand is connecting. Can you unpack that?
Yeah, I think it's experience, man, and then finding the gaps in the market that basically need to be filled. Or how many cannabis companies brand their cannabis as premium? It's like, why do you have to keep repeating the same, you know what I mean? And then it dilutes it. So what is your messaging? Is your messaging different? You know what I mean? Because if your product is all premium, that's all the same, then what are you saying to people? So I think in cannabis, a lot of it has to do with like the message that you put out. And believe it or not, the content, the type of content. And I was just telling our CFO the other day that like everyone makes pre-rolls, dude. Everyone makes pre-rolls. How do you stand out from that? It's about storytelling. What's the story behind your brand or your product? And more than that, it's how you tell a story, especially in cannabis, man, because there's so many lies that's been spewed about it for so long. How can you not rely on producing a word that is truthful? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I guess to answer your question, brand to me, specifically in cannabis and other branding as well, is how you tell your story, essentially, and making sure that story is truthful and authentic.
I'm glad you said that. So that's the true answer, as validating from a marketer myself. Like that's it. That's literally it. It sounds easy, but it's also not well done because storytelling could be authentic and storytelling could be marketing,
Right.
So we haven't heard it yet. So for folks listening, what's your story, man? Like tell us what makes you guys stand out through the noise.
Man, that's crazy to ask because I think it's something that I grapple with often, and other operators should too, because in this market where it's not saturated, right? There's competition. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people, kind of what you had mentioned before, think it's build it and they will come. I think a lot of it is throwing dollars at places and see if it's going to work. So for me, operating the business in a way that is gritty can sometimes be hard to explain. Having the perspective of someone who's been, basically in trouble for cannabis, being someone of African descent, Black descent, being Black. I don't want to create the brand on like, oh, the first Black owner. So what you do is tell stories that people can relate to that is specific to a target market. And to me, that's really heavy cannabis culture. You know what I mean? And people who are like socially aware. It's not premium. Everyone says premium, but what can you put out there that people can connect to? This is why we make blunts. This is why we make cereal bars. So
but I bet you they're having an emotional connection to the brand. Like, hey, I'm getting this from Major Bloom. Like, I know this was made by his team and the hard work, and like it's all of that, no pun intended, rolled into it, right? That at the end of the day, why brands succeed is the experience, because you said that earlier.
Absolutely.
But everything that we do, purchasing, is all based on emotions. So you guys are creating some type of emotion with your products and your brand. Like, how would you describe some of those emotions?
Yeah, man. No, that's a great question. Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing is, going back to the experience is authenticity, man. Like what's real, you know what I mean? Or is this stock? Or there's some actors here, Like I love this company called The Bouquet. And I love the content they put out because you could tell that it's like real people that love to smoke weed. It's not like They didn't hire actors. And we did a product launch with them for Black History Month because it's a Black-owned company. And then we coupled that with the first Black cultivator on the East Coast, Just Incredibles. So like that's the type of experience. You know what I mean? Like we sold out of those things. That's the type that we're curating. I think part of it too is just kind of elaborating more on it's partnerships. When it comes to basically like being adopted and understood by a larger group, partnerships, crossing the chasm, you need partnerships. You need to work with other people. You can't think that you're going to do everything by yourself. This is why I stay very particular to distribution and branding. We have an in-house designer. We basically print our own labels. It seems so little, but I'm telling you, man, like you can go to any big MSO and they have sativa, indica, and hybrid, and the packaging is the same for their flower, for their pre-rolls, their edible lines. It's so cookie cutter that when we print labels that look differently, and we have like 50 of them at this point, everyone's like, what? And it seems so little, but we have a label printer, you know what I mean? But that takes creativity and a team, and it's authentic because he's an artist. Matter of fact, he said this to me the other day. He's like, I know this is a business for you, but this is my art, and I want to take my time. That's what he said to me. And I'm like, you know what? I'm an artist too, so I'm gonna let you do your thing. Take your time on what you need. That's to me is authentic. He doesn't want to be rushed because it's what we're doing. I mean, you see this stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's real. These are real people. We're curating something real. It's not cookie cutter.
I love how you talked about art, and that's the difference I think for a lot of brands that are succeeding. Why you guys are successful, because it's unique to you guys. No one's doing that same type of art, that style. They can tell, and people know like it's handmade. The artwork, and that's why, because you're right, on the mass corporate side, you're seeing similar packaging, but you guys found your niche, and that's awesome. Like some people, at least a lot of people I feel are trying to copy other people when you guys literally just say, this is us, I'm doing me.
Right.
And think right away, because you're so authentic, that's why, you have a following that organically is just growing with you guys.
I appreciate that, man.
And that's great that you're giving your team to empower them to be artists, because what it sounds like as a leader, you're letting people be passionate about what they're doing, and it shows in their work. As a result, because they're happy and they're growing, they're able to service your customers at a better level. You've given them that room, to grow.
No, absolutely, man. That's dope. That's dope that you picked that up. Yeah. Shout out to John, our in-house designer, man. Yeah, shout out to John.
Yeah, we'll make a clip right here. We'll send him a little clip here. So John, shout out. Yeah. I mean, just like you, brother, like I run an agency, I manage people. Like it doesn't matter the industry you're in, we're all doing the same stuff, right? It's financing, it's branding, it's marketing, it's sales, it's storytelling, it's lifting up people, it's managing people, it's putting out fires. Like it's all the same shit, brother. We're all doing the same stuff.
Sorry I was late today, bro. I was putting out a fire.
Don't even be sorry. Like I didn't even complain once. I gave you grace because I knew. I'm like, what was the first thing I said to you when you jumped on?
The entrepreneurship. Welcome to entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Because like I totally can empathize and sympathize. I was like, no problem. I knew something came up. Like I always run 5 minutes late. So a running joke within my team is like they'll send me like I have to Venmo them $5 when I'm late.
Oh, that's dope.
It's like a behavior thing.
That's very important.
But we push ourselves right to that last minute. Like, okay, I'm gonna have a meeting, what do I do? But also if we're talking to someone, we don't just cut it off. Like we're gonna finish that conversation if it's a team member or a client or whatever. So, as much as we want to be on time, because it's also respecting other people that are waiting for us.
Right.
There's two sides of the story.
Right. Man, it's so true. That's so true.
So the space itself, like where do you see, the business in cannabis in the next few years?
Yeah. So the business of cannabis, well, my gut is more markets, obviously, more users, more states. Last night I was in Connecticut. Connecticut's my home state. And they are chomping to get going, whether it be regulators or businesses. It was really cool to be in that room with some regulators, some private businesses that are starting cannabis branches, some cannabis entrepreneurs, local government. So it's an economic opportunity for sure. I think in the next couple of years, there needs to be an exclusive focus, especially if federal legalization is to happen, on basically like, what are we doing about the gap? Because it could perpetuate. And it sucks to say that like you see that now, Like I know a guy or a company who sold, to a big guy, and this kid came from money. It is just like you can just see the generational wealth, like the gap growing essentially.
Mm.
So I don't think it's just the one job of the government. I think it's private entities, you know what I mean, that needs to take part in it, as well as like the public recognizing that. So until we kind of have those three things in line, basically that's where we need to be in order to help shrink that gap. The bill that got shot down, the Safe Banking Act, I believe it was, that
Yep.
would not have helped equity. It wouldn't have, so, right? Like,
Yeah.
so it's like, how do you explain that? Like, what the fuck? The government's going to do what they want, but like, if you pass that, it's just going to make rich people get richer. Okay. So, so at least for what I can control is do my part and like speak from an equitable standpoint, because like I was blessed and graced with the network to get this place to open. And again, going back to family and friends, I have a friend who's a well-off entrepreneur. He's actually here visiting for the first time in mad long, and he's like, bro, I believe in you. We played college football together. Like we were on the field together practicing, hot summers, all that stuff. So he knew the work. He actually started a business with his family. Same with my dad. So there's like, again, going back to experiences, man, I had the opportunity to experience that. So I had nothing but to share like what my experience is now, and saying that there's a visual gap that needs to be addressed. So I hope, personally, to be a part of that and share my experience and help to educate with that. Because if not, then the perspective's not there and the gap's going to be widened. Like I see it here. You know what I mean?
I mean, we talked about some of the opportunities and good sides of cannabis. Like there's some downsides like you're alluding to.
Yeah.
So like what other things that people aren't aware about there are some of like the challenges, the things that you maybe dislike about the industry?
Yeah. I would probably say during the process here in Massachusetts, for equity specific, because we're an equity business, we had no communication with the government about programming. In fact, it was about a year and a half after we got into the program that they were like, well, here's like one formal communication. So then what ends up happening, and it's not even a bad thing, what ends up happening is that you start networking with people to communicate about the process. And that's kind of where we are now. And it's outside of equity businesses. It's also Black-owned businesses, brown-owned businesses, minority-owned, basically any disenfranchised community, veteran-owned. You start to communicate and figure out ways that you can work together, whether it's buying groups, whether it's just having an event every month. You know what I mean? But again, it's not the fault of the government. Maybe people have to stop waiting around and actually like start to form and take shape on the change they want to see. I think that's one big thing though, is that like with equity program, not only in Massachusetts, around the nation, there seems to be a gap with getting to a point of knowing that there's a cohort or a group of people, and then actually figuring out how to get them involved and participating in the industry. So we figured out the way to do that is to communicate and share experience essentially. So I had a lot of people who have been through it before and helped me, basically get to this point.
Sounds like at the end of the day, it's the community that is really the safe space for everyone in cannabis to kind of find and help and lift each other. So what does the community mean to you? Like what does that look like?
Yeah. What does it look like? Well, this is a good question, because I always think about two levels of it. Actually, like probably like three levels of it. Actually, yeah, three levels of it. So you have your local community. So obviously there's weed smokers in the local community. We have people that live right next door that come through here. And then you have your cannabis community. So those are people who might live 25 miles away, or they'll drive in to come see you or come to your shop. And then you have your online community. Which can be a mix of all three. It could be someone local that fucks with you online. It could be someone that lives a little bit ways away, is coming to see you and fucks with you online. Or it's people that like, I've never stepped foot in here, but like will cheerlead and like encourage, you know what I mean? So to me, that's the definition of it. And it's just making sure that there's participation in ways to communicate and ways to engage between all three of them. It's hard. It is hard, man. It's very hard.
What's hard about it?
I guess trying to, you're always experimenting, man. Like I do polls sometimes, and like it's cool to do polls, but like a lot of decisions are made on polls actually, or it's mostly online. These are some people that like I know from back in the day, or someone might be in a different market that just likes what we do, and they'll comment. It's like, all right, well, it's funny because they usually aligns though, because like if we're getting participation from someone that's not in this market, and then I ask a question to the team, they seem to align. I'll give you an example. Mylar bags. We had a decision not to use Mylar bags anymore and do jars, glass jars. So like asking the online community, align with the rest of the team. So that was a no-brainer decision. It's like, all right, like the team here and then the online community both said, don't use Mylar bags anymore. So now we use amber jars. So that's what I mean by like engagement and participation, you know, so.
That's huge. Like this is an advice that I always tell anyone is like, just ask and speak to your customers. People are so heavy in like analytics and data. And like, I'm sure people are dropping data to you. You have all these vendors, like look at all the data, what people buying behavior, shopping. At the end of the day, just like talk to the last 10 people that come in and say, hey, why did you come in? What did you like about my product? What didn't you like about my product? How can I make sure that, you know, you come back? Would you recommend us to someone? Like literally the simple shit. Like people don't do it. They literally don't. I don't know what it is. Are we afraid to talk to people? But I think people get so in like systematic stuff. It's like, just be human. Literally go and talk to customers because they appreciate it. Because look, everyone says it. You know, I mean, I get emails all the time from like Amazon. I buy a lot of stuff on Amazon. Like I try to give back and like give reviews. Right. But I do it now and then. At least I'm doing some action. So you might be like, oh man, Kham, I'm doing this stuff. You told me to talk to my last 10 clients, but you got to keep doing it because they're busy too. They might be running out the door after they purchase something, but like, you know, maybe it's a 10% conversion. So you ask 100 people and then 10 of them, you know, say yes, but that qualitative, not quantitative, right? That qualitative feedback makes the hugest impact.
Right.
And that's what differentiates, again, like brands that win, and brands that don't, because they're literally talking to people, getting real feedback, and you're serving the people.
Right here. You know what the next move is?
What's that?
Yes. Talk about feedback. What do you think?
Oh, you're getting a new mic?
So, yeah, what comes to mind when you talk about feedback?
I know, I'm sorry.
Getting reviews in this capacity. Right.
So like I think like if they're in your shop,
testimonies, bro.
That's the thing I tell every single client. I say, even like I have friends who run businesses, like, look, the quickest thing that you can do, the easiest thing is get testimonials and case studies. You can like do the marketing and sales and pitches and brochure all you want, but the fastest everyone cares about is basically like social proof, right? Which could be online or whatever it is, like written. So it's the easiest thing to do. Like talk to 10 people that you can just, because I know you have where you're sitting, you're right in the shop. So just weave people over, have someone, you know,
30 seconds, bro.
Have someone like man that table and like just pull over people for like, hey, look, I know you guys leaving. I know you guys, you're shopping here. You must be happy. You have like 30 seconds.
Right.
And just ask them one question. Like, why do you guys buy here?
Let's go, bro.
And then what happens, you take all those clips, you take all those clips, right? And you turn them into a reel.
Yep.
That's it. That's storytelling right there. Like literally let other people storytell for you.
Dude, come out so we can launch it, bro. Come out so we can launch
I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to. Okay, deal. I'll show you how easy it is.
Well, I know how easy it is, bro. It's just that I've been passive about it. Like, and we had this quirky setup here, but this is perfect to do that and execute on it. Now we just need someone to help with it, bro. So come through.
Hey, I'll help you. Because then what happens, it's a model, and we'll share it to the other folks in the community. All the dispensaries that are doing it. Look, here it is. Here's the case study. Yeah. We did it. We spent 30 minutes one day, and we got 15 testimonials. Because people don't even have 2 testimonials on their site.
Right. And I'll tell you why this is fucking awesome is because there's a part of the cannabis shit that like it is driven by fucking like an engine. So SEO, you familiar with SEO?
Yes, we're very familiar with SEO.
Dispensary's putting $30,000, and we're over here a startup, bro, and we don't even have a budget yet. You get what I'm saying, bro? Like I had a call with a dude last week. His marketing budget's $1 million, bro. I'm like, what? He's trying to work with us, so he's like open and like we're chummy and shit. He raised $30 million. So how much does this fucking cost to do it differently? You know what I mean?
$40 to $100, get a good mic.
Right.
Even on your phone, you don't even need your phone. The quality of our cell phones, this thing's HD quality, the sound quality. You don't even need anything else. Just maybe like do it outside. You can talk to people outside before they go in.
All right. That's it, bro. That's it, honestly.
But that's the quickest way. Like when you can compete, and that's how you compete with the big brands is just get testimonials, however organically you can get it, quick and easy. Your clients love you. That's why they shop with you. Don't be afraid to ask. I think a lot of people are afraid to ask or they feel they're bothering them. It's not that. But what would be the worst thing for anyone in the community is like if you guys shut down, right? Because we didn't get enough testimonials to share that story to get more people like interested brand awareness to come out and shop with you?
This is a strategy of taking it to the next level, bro.
Yes.
Like, we're very sustainable, bro. Trust me.
No.
Trust me, because it's family and friends, bro. It's none of that pressure shit. And I think that's where the creativity comes from, bro. There are people who are in situations in this space where they are, I guess, like stressed and like, feel that pressure. It could be from, I don't know, working alongside, family dollars, or I don't know, the corporate setting. But yeah, just
investors put a lot of pressure. There's a lot of variables in play.
Yeah, man. So this is very fluid, and like, all right, it's time as a cohesive unit to like take it to the next level. So that's the mindset. It's no pressure over it.
Oh, one other story that I want to get out here that people probably don't know is like you're an adjunct professor.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. So you're giving back to the community. So that's another thing. I challenge you when you go talk to your students to get a testimonial from them. Like, how am I teaching you? Because now your story has a whole nother level. It gets deeper.
Yeah.
It gets richer.
For sure.
But tell me about what got you interested to do that.
That, man, is an interesting question, dude, because the first thing that comes to mind when people ask that is the truth. I got kicked out of my second school, and I was back home in Bridgeport at Housatonic, and I took a business law class. And this guy was a successful lawyer and took time out of his day. He had his own law firm to come teach at a community college. And he was the coolest dude. So I'm like, if I had the opportunity to do that, I want to do that. And that was around the same time that I realized that like business was cool to study. So from then on out, I took business courses for the next like 6 years and loved it. And then after that, I finished business school and started my own business. And I got to a point where I felt like I had enough corporate experience and like entrepreneurship experience to be like, all right, I can share my stories to a classroom. So that's kind of the story, though. I got the bug bitten by an entrepreneur who was an adjunct professor as well.
Oh, that's awesome. What does it feel like, after you teach a course or a class, or kind of just seeing the feedback from the students?
Yeah, it's cool for two reasons. First is sharing real life experiences. And then the second is sharing adversities throughout those experiences. I was a horrible student, even in college. I have a couple different learning disabilities. And if it wasn't for me understanding how I learned, which is not traditional to the system, like what's traditional system of taking standardized testing, you know what I mean? Like reading a book and memorizing it. And then by the time I started taking business courses, we studied a lot of business cases, which is a lot different. Granted, the math classes were still extremely hard, but it took me learning that I learned differently to be able to share that with other students who be like, hey, this form of education, this formal education is cool, but like in the real world, it's a little different. You know what I mean? So like there's gonna be a life after, your GPA and GMATs and SATs. So like figure out that now, you know what I mean? And then it seems kind of touchy-feely, but I think it's important to talk about regardless of your career path, make sure, and I said this before, it's your truth, your why. And that could be working inside a P&G or a big firm, or it could be flipping burgers because you love to cook. But realize you have to find your why and your truth.
Well, so on that note, we're coming to the top of the hour here. So do you have a go-to mantra or go-to kind of like slogan that you live by?
Faith. Faith. Dude, I love Nipsey Hussle is one of my favorite artists. And he's got a song at the end. He talks about when you look back at it, it's going to feel like it's nothing. So that means that like your problems of today, they shouldn't be your worries of tomorrow. So in many instances, everything feels like it's so heavy in the time that you're in it. And then if you realize that like it's not going to really matter, maybe next week or maybe a year from now, 10 years from now, whenever it happens, it's going to happen where it doesn't really mean anything. So I think that's the important thing to consider, is that like your struggles, you take them for experiences. And then when you look back at it, it's going to be like, wow, I realized why that happened, and it's nothing pretty much, or it's important, but you can't harp on it essentially.
They're all lessons, I feel. In that beginning, I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves when we make mistakes and fail, but they're life lessons, and you learn from it and grow from it. So you're a busy guy. So what are you up to? What's Major Bloom up to now?
Right now, got some deliveries to make. Actually, as soon as we hang up here, I know we got a slip or two that came through. We're making pre-rolls, of course. And then, honestly, my boy who invested here, a big homie of mine, he's the first time he stepped foot in here since we had dirt on the ground and there was like no walls up. So I'm gonna go catch up with him after that, and then probably make a delivery. And yeah, just we open till 11 every night. So we do wholesale too. I don't think we have any wholesale deliveries today, but early next week we're delivering to Yamba Markets. They're in Cambridge, Massachusetts. They're also in the equity program. So we're excited to go visit their spot, man, just because, Cambridge is pretty hot right now. There's a lot going on in Cambridge. And then, of course, 420 is coming up soon. We got the cereal bars dropping. So, yeah, it's just a lot.
Nice.
More media.
Constant, just activity. You're doing all good stuff, brother. So I wish you the best. We'll connect, and then I'll be out there to help you, me and my team.
Dude,
we'll get you guys rolling.
You said you were in the backyard. Whereabouts?
So my office is in Worcester.
Yeah.
We'll come up and we'll help you out. We'll have some fun. And I know that you like to party and stuff like that too. So we'll make it a good time.
At Hayes, I'm on the block, bro. That's it. Oh man, no, that's cool. Have you been through yet?
No, your place? No, I have not. What? All right,
well,
dude. For those that are listening, even if they timed this stuff, like we're still kind of getting out of the pandemic, right? So I have 4 kids. I have a baby. This is the last one to get vaccinated. And once she gets vaccinated, then for me, I'll be more free to get out into public.
I feel you, man. That's how old?
So my kids are 9, 7, 6, and 1.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
What about yourself?
Yeah.
You got any of your own or yeah?
Yeah, man. So my oldest actually just got his tonsils taken out. He's 6. So he's just been chilling the past couple of days. And then a 3-year-old, 2 boys. Kind of crazy, bro. But it's cool, though. It's very cool.
High energy.
I live in Worcester, too. Yeah, a lot of high energy, man. That's crazy. But it's cool, though, because, they're right down the street from the shop. So it's been very, like a blessing to be so close. You know what I mean? And if they need anything or, if it's a weird hour, I need to come back. You know what I mean? And believe me, that happens, bro.
Oh, man. With kids, it's a whole nother, there's no schedule.
Right.
It's just life. Like I tell a lot of folks that there's no work-life balance. It's just life.
Right.
And once you kind of view it like that, then, hopefully you don't stress out about not being available at work. It's a mindset for sure.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what it is too, man. And, now that I know you're familiar with Massachusetts, kids can't come in here, bro. And it's like being someone who's an entrepreneur. If I had bicycle shop or mechanics, your kids can come around and understand, at least grow into it. And that sucks that the laws don't really think about a local entrepreneur in that perspective. They're like, oh, gotta be 21. You know what I mean? But they can go in liquor stores, bro, which my neighbor next door, if they got their hands on some of the stuff in there, they'd be, you know what I mean? They can go to CVS, bro. So it's yeah. So we got to kind of have to, again, they're lessons, you know what I mean? Maybe I'll learn how to lobby from this experience.
It'll all catch up eventually, unfortunately, we're taking it in phases, right? For this thing to kind of normalize.
Right. It's just crazy thinking about, I have a little wine rack. And the wine, it's got the little cork on it. A 2-year-old can pull that off. You know what I mean? You get what I'm saying, though?
Yeah. It really is. I mean, I don't know. We're not lawmakers, but
we got experience, though. That's the thing. It's rationale and common sense.
Some of the smartest people don't have common sense, brother. I have a lot of proof. I have a lot of friends that are geniuses, have high IQs, but they don't have the best common sense.
It's what? So yeah, right. Man.
Well,
all right, bro.
I really appreciate your time today, and I look forward to connecting with you soon, my man.
For sure. We're gonna launch that too. I'm serious about that. So, come through, pull up.
Well, after this, I'll get your stuff. It's gonna happen this year. We're gonna get to sooner than later.
All right, let's go. Let's go, man. All right, it was good catching up with you, man. We'll talk to you very soon.
All right. Cheers. Thanks a lot. Thanks for spending your time with us. This podcast is for you. And if you have any topics you'd like to learn more about or suggestions, please email us at podcast@indicativemarketing.com. And don't be a stranger. Connect with me on LinkedIn.